a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe against our law enforcement officers.
A lunatic fringe? So you're not allowed to protest over there?
J.D. Vance, I'm a big Catholic. I'm a big boy, and America is a Christian nation and all of this bullshit. Listen to him just lie through his teeth. And again, I want to remind you, the entire country watched a woman get executed by a unhinged, pink arm, low T terrorist ICE thug.
We're doing so much to try to find the financing networks and the domestic terrorism networks that legitimate this violence, that fund this violence, and that, of course, engage in the violence. These people should not feel emboldened because they have, for the first time, maybe in American history, an administration that is not going to tolerate political violence of any kind from anywhere.
This coming from the administration that pardoned all of the January 6 felons, this coming from a political party that home grew Timothy McVeigh. These are all of the same right-wing networks that still exist everywhere. The Proud Boys, the Don't Tread on Me. Well, where are they now? They spoke out against a large federal government that could do this exact kind of thing to citizens. But it turns out it's what they wanted all along. Just as long as they're going after a girl that has pronouns, heaven forbid, in her bio, then we can justify the killing.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about the mainstream liberal media meltdown that is currently happening over J.D. Vance telling the truth, okay? He went off on the media yesterday. We covered this, basically exposing this liberal woman who was shot and killed by ICE. She was at fault for what happened to her, okay? Renee Good decided to obstruct, to be a ICE fighter, right? I'm not sure what they call themselves, right? But basically engage in domestic terrorism. And ultimately, at the end of the day, she won a darn award. Now, this is plain and simple, okay? We saw it all on tape. We all saw the same thing, except if you're liberal, right? If you're liberal, you saw murder, okay? If you're conservative or somebody with common sense, okay, that actually is living in reality, then what you saw was a justified shooting.
Well, I haven't seen the vice president's statement, but he's generally very accurate. I hate to say, look, I watched that yesterday, and there were a lot of different forms to it. But there was a woman screaming, "Shame, shame, shame, shame." She was a agitator, probably a paid agitator, but in my opinion, she was an agitator, a very high-level agitator, so professional. She wouldn't stop screaming. I said, this isn't a normal situation. This is a professional troublemaker, because you heard it and I had it. Now, I will say this, the news sort of turned her down, turned her off, because you're trying to watch. She was so loud and so crazy and just not normal. When somebody sees something like that, they don't go screaming and the same words. So I guess you could say professional, but I didn't think she did a very good job. You have agitators, and we will always be protecting ICE, and we're always going to be protecting our Border Patrol and our law enforcement.
Yes. Okay. So I want y'all to see this angle, because this was very interesting. And then we're going to go back and watch it one more time because your auntie Nim didn't tune in yet. So send this to him because we're going to review it. Everybody thought he didn't get hit. Everybody thought this woman was just minding her business. She ran him over. Dang, he could have went up under the car if he was a little bit to the left. But I want y'all to watch this real quick. As the video progresses, you're going to see him walking towards the front of the car. And when she backed up like this, she lined him up in front of the car. He was really off to the side. But when she backed up like this, he ended up right in the front. And then she went forward. To me, it looks like, in his perspective, it could be, I don't know what's in his mind, it looked like that he saw her line him up in front of the car. Watch it.
As the vehicle passes, you can see the dark-colored SUV driven by Renee Nicole Good. That's on the right there in the back. The surveillance video taken by a home nearby. Agents can be seen milling about near the vehicle, then converging on it. And then you see right there the SUV begins to move, and that's when the shots are fired.
She lines him up. As soon as she back up, he now is in the front of the car. and she runs him over, hits him, boom.
New body cam footage from the perspective of the ICE officer who shot Renee Nicole Good dead shows the whole conversation that was happening right before the shooting.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy.
Out of the car. Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Oh!
Now, the Department of Homeland Security says that the agent fired in self-defense after Good's vehicle accelerated once she was told to get out of her SUV. And they say that Good had followed ICE agents to multiple locations earlier that day and was blocking the roadway while trying to interfere with enforcement. And Good was also allegedly involved with ICE Watch, which is an activist network that operates in several sanctuary cities. The group says it exists to monitor and document ICE activity, but federal officials, they argue members often cross the line and actively interfere. Now, although participants call themselves legal observers, authorities say their actions can become disruptive and confrontational. The New York Post reports that Good got involved through her son's school community. ICE Watch groups commonly use apps, whistles, car horns, and neighborhood alerts to warn when ICE agents are nearby. One witness said Good's car was leading the protest and blocking traffic. After the shooting, her wife can be heard on video crying out, quote, "I made her come down here, it's my fault." Federal authorities are now investigating ICE Watch and similar groups, looking into their training, funding, and whether their actions amount to criminal interference with federal law enforcement.
Yeah, so personally, I don't see how anybody with common sense watches that and says that that's murder. Right? Because again, whether the woman intended to try to run over the ICE agent or not, I think that it is fair to say that the ICE agent perceived her to be a deadly threat because of the fact that she did accelerate heavily, right? As ICE agents were trying to detain her, and there was an ICE agent in front of her vehicle, okay? And whether she intentionally did that or not, right, in order to run over the ICE agent, it doesn't matter, right? It does not matter. And that's what's really frustrating about this whole conversation is that these liberals are focusing on a bunch of stuff that does not matter. The only thing that matters is whether or not the ICE agent had a reasonable belief at the time in which this happened, a split second, that his life was in danger, okay? And I'm not sure how anybody who is not blinded by liberal ideology could see any different. But apparently, the whole liberal media, they're blinded, right, by liberal ideology because they're pissed off and they're mad at J.D. Vance telling the truth, okay, along with liberals as well, too. They're all upset that J.D. Vance told the truth about what happened to this woman, that it was basically their own fault.
So J.D. Vance just said that the ICE agent who shot and killed Renee Good, he'll face no consequence and that he has absolute immunity. So we have a new precedent just set. ICE agents can do whatever they want with zero consequences, including killing innocent American citizens, and they'll face less consequences than cops.
So y'all do know J.D. Vance, which is the vice president, and at this moment, aside to Elon Musk, J.D. Vance is Donald Trump's right-hand man. J.D. Vance made a statement at a press conference yesterday, pretty much saying that the ICE agent who unalived that 37-year-old woman in Minnesota, basically saying that it was justified. And he basically said that that man will get full immunity without a fucking investigation. You made an announcement saying that the guy's going to get full immunity less than 24 hours after it happened without a proper investigation. Just because there's videos floating around of this angle and that angle doesn't mean that the investigation is complete. But for the vice president, J.D. Vance, to come on national television and say something like that, is diabolical. And guess what?
Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance yesterday defended the officer's actions and blamed the victim yesterday during a briefing at the White House.
What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile? What that headline leaves out is that that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation in the United States of America. What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself. He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before, and everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. The Department of Justice is going to investigate this. The Department of Homeland Security is already investigating this. But the simple fact is, what you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who is trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe against our law enforcement officers.
Yeah, a couple of things here. The vice president using his position and the podium to say things he just doesn't know anything about at all. And also to malign the victim, this woman who is dead, this mother. And then raising more questions, actually, about ICE. So if this guy is so sensitive and the victim of a trauma, what's he doing out in the field? It's just a question. Yeah, I don't understand what's going on here. He's been through an incredible trauma. Was injured in that trauma. He's out in the field. And that's the explanation. He's trigger happy because he's traumatized. Great.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. The truth hurts. The truth hurts. They're so upset, right? They want to continue to talk about this instead of moving on. The truth means that we need to move on. There's nothing that should happen to the ICE agent. It was 100% justified. We don't even need an investigation. What I need an investigation for, I saw it on video. What is there to investigate? The video clearly shows the ICE agent being hit by her vehicle. Thank God he was able to move out the way enough not to get completely run over, but he was hit. That in and of itself legally is enough to justify the shooting. Period. I don't need to investigate. I don't need to see more. I've seen everything. I have two eyes, and I can see the reality of what happened.
This vehicle was blocking the federal agents right there.
That's right, Tom. And a big caveat, we don't know what happened before this, but they're definitely going to look at the fact this is an unmarked vehicle, but the lights are on. These are clearly members of law enforcement, so that's at least known to this driver.
Let's play the video because something else happens right here. Those officers approach the vehicle. They try to open the door. Let's stop it here. How will this help the investigators?
Whatever is said here, what these officers say, if the driver said anything or not, could really help them understand whether or not they thought there was some sort of an imminent threat. Was this person trying to listen to them? Were they scared? Or is this going to be a problem?
And then, of course, what the driver does next. Let's play that video. Trying to leave there. One of the officers felt like they were forced to fire, and they do. We want to show another angle, reverse angle of the same incident here. We're going to freeze it. This is that same angle here. And what does this show us, Tom?
Well, this appears to show an officer right in front of the vehicle. That in between the way that the vehicle was moving and the timeline of that, how was the officer responding in that split second going to be critical for investigators.
Finally, one more piece of evidence we want to talk about here, and it is the bullet hole in the front of the windshield. What will this tell investigators?
Well, you look at this, you look at ballistics, you look at witness statements, you look at other video, all going to be part of this investigation.
Or whatever the case may be. They talking all that noise. They talking all that trash. And this is what happens. That woman had no business being there. Let's get to Will Cain, because we got some Democrats who are obviously losing their mind. We got J.D. Vance that stood up against the lies, and we got the Jacob Fry guy who's a complete idiot, and I want to point him out. Let's go Will Cain first. Roll the clip.
in your words, that what happened was not self-defense, this was murder. Speaking of the ICE incident in Minneapolis. The words are on the screen for anybody that wants to see that. Series of questions. Have you interviewed the officer, the ICE agent involved in this shooting?
No, but I've watched the video. Why are you so afraid to show the video?
No, I know you've watched the video. No, I know you've watched the
video.
video.
You didn't watch the
video. Have you seen law enforcement reports? Have you?
Why don't you just show it and let people use their own eyes?
Excuse me, I have. Have you seen the police reports, the law enforcement reports? Have you seen any of the paperwork filed by ICE on what happened in this incident?
No, I haven't seen all of that, just like you haven't seen the classified justifications for going to war in Venezuela, by the way.
Excuse me, Congressman.
You haven't seen that.
That's a complete diversion, a red herring. Have you interviewed any eyewitnesses on the ground?
It's not a red herring. It's what we were just talking about.
Have you interviewed any eyewitnesses on the ground in Minneapolis? Have you interviewed any eyewitnesses?
Have I personally interviewed them? No, that's not my job. My job is to speak truth to power.
It's really interesting.
And when I look at that video, I see murder. And I think we should call it that if that's what happened. And by the way, I've been in situations like that. Have you ever
due process? I've looked at your tweets. You've talked about the concept of due process. No, this is important for everybody to understand.
Come on, Will.
You have a job, and you have highlighted to us as a congressman. You watched a viral video. I don't know how many videos you watched. There's multiple angles, but you watched a video. You didn't interview a witness. You didn't look at law enforcement reports. You haven't spoken to the agent involved. And with that limited knowledge of looking at a viral video, you went to social media and you condemned the federal officer to murder. You made that conclusion long before an investigation is played out. And I'm just curious, is that in line with your vision of due process?
Let me ask you this. When a United States senator says that our troops should follow the law, and the president of the United States says he should be hanged for saying that, he's condemning him to death?
I'm talking about you,
Congressman. Do you think that that's responsible?
I'm talking about you.
No, but my question is, you love to criticize Democrats. Have you ever criticized a Republican like the President of the United States for doing something totally innocent, like telling Americans to follow the law, the President says someone should be hanged? The President condemns someone to death, and you can't say a thing. But when I see with my own eyes something that looks like murder, yeah, I'm going to call it the truth. And the courts will decide. The courts will decide. But I am going to call it what I see it. Because I think that we should speak truth to power.
No matter what happens, no matter if there's assassination attempts on ICE, riots in the street, you will outpace due process.
Excuse me, they just murdered an American citizen.
Based upon
they just murdered an American citizen.
Something murder.
Look, Will, I'm going to get death threats just for being on this interview, okay?
Well, I hope that's
I'm not afraid.
Case. I really hope that's not the case.
Well, it probably will be. I'll let you know when we're done.
Ain't nobody even know who this dude is. Man, I ain't never seen this dude a day in my life. I'm going to get death threats. Corny weirdo, like soy boy. Ain't nobody death threatening you, bro. At the end of the day, it's because you're an idiot. If anybody has a contention with what you said it was murder. We just watched the video and she hit him with the car. That's not murder, you idiot. I tell people when they come up, put some money on it. I swear, somebody go, it's murder. Put some money on it. Let's put some money on how this outcome's gonna come. I put $100,000 on he not gonna be found guilty of nothing. She hit him with the car. That's enough to make a man feel that he could suffer serious bodily injury or death. They trying to open the door and she's driving off. She could drag one of the other officers. Use of deadly force. She died as a result. That's not on the table. Whether you die or not don't matter. It's whether the use of force is justified. And in that case, the use of force was justified. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that's up to God to decide or whatever, she ended up dying.
To defend the indefensible. And this is our current state of politics. Reality is determined by your political ideology instead of what you actually see. And it's sad, it really is. It's sad. It's like, if we're living in this world, right? We can't talk to each other, right? There's no way we can talk to each other if our reality is determined by our political ideology. Objective reality. People see two different things based off how they feel about politics, when everybody should be saying the exact same thing that happened in that situation. What happened to that woman, unfortunately for her, was a result of her own actions. And that ICE agent, at least legally speaking, was justified in self-defense, and that's it.